Dan, let's get some news from other fights that are going on, because we saw recently that the fight on October 24th between Gervonta Davis and Leo Santa Cruz has been pushed back a week to Halloween, October 31st. And that's because they're moving it to Texas to allow fans into the arena, which obviously widens our eyes and pricks our ears up, because we've been told in the past by Bob Arum that the possibility of Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury Part 3 won't happen unless we can get fans into the arena. Is this a good sign? And is that the sign of things to come over in the States? Because it's very different than it is here in England, where we're not allowed anybody in just yet.
For the time being, they're going to allow a limited number of fans in these locations. Not every state in the United States allows it. Texas, I guess, feels like they can do it at a minimal risk. The fight between Deontay and Tyson is supposed to once again be in Las Vegas, which is in the state of Nevada, where the governors have their own set of rules what each state can do. So they haven't even made it announced whether you can do that in Nevada. Beyond that, I know that Bob Arum from Top Rank has talked about this fight taking place at the end of this year. He's talked about December 19th. In the last week or so, he's moved off that date, not because he doesn't want to go on that date, but because their broadcaster, ESPN, and I think the Wilder broadcaster, also Fox, agreed that it would be a bad day because ESPN is so loaded up with big American college football games. So you take away, huge amounts of audience in terms of who's willing to pay money for a pay-per-view. So Bob had spoke about moving it earlier into December. I spoke to Bob on Sunday for a story that I wrote for Boxing Scene. He made the point that, we're going to look to move it earlier in December, but he acknowledged that it's more likely to move into the early part of next year. I had spoken to Shelley Finkel, who was Deontay's co-manager. He also acknowledged that, I don't know what Bob's talking about, moving it earlier. It's going to go into January. So we'll see how things are with the virus come January. But for the moment, they hope they can have fans in that stadium in Las Vegas, whether it takes place December or in January.
What's the latest with the Wilder camp? Because he, as the fighter, has been quite quiet. We saw the Mark Breland story last week. Is he in camp? Is he training? What's he doing at the moment? Because we've not seen too much from him.
Well, Wilder's been very quiet. I mean, I guess he's just paying attention to, his training and trying to be prepared for whatever may come. I don't think you could say he's necessarily in a full blast camp, because the fight, even if it was going to take place, at that time in December, it would be a little bit too early to be into a full training camp at this point. I'm sure because Deontay's been the kind of athlete that's kept him in condition. He's probably doing some kind of workouts. But the big story, as you mentioned, is the fact that the corner has seen a big change. And so here you have Deontay Wilder very upset after the rematch that Mark Breland threw, even though Mark Breland, in my estimation, saved him possibly from serious injury. He kind of said he might do it. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do in the immediate aftermath of the fight. Then a few days later, he said, keep Breland in the corner. And as I wrote in the story for Boxing Scene that broke that story a few days ago, indeed, he decided to make a change and parted ways with Mark Breland. That was according to Shelley Finkel. And so they're not going to go out, and it's going to be a little different than what Fury did, where he went and decided to go align himself with Sugar Hill Stewart. In this case, what they're doing is basically, going to realign the guys who are already there. And so he's been his co-trainer for his entire career, pro and amateur, is going to stay in his position. And you'll see the former heavyweight contender Malik Scott, who was close to Deontay, who's been in the camp, is going to take on a role in that training camp and in that corner. And so they'll go in with the camp with Jay and Malik and go on from there.
Dillian Whyte was on UK TV last night, Ben. He referred to Deontay Wilder as an idiot based off the back of this split with Mark Breland. What's your take on that? Do you think he's been daft? What's your take on the split?
I don't know why Dillian Whyte's called him an idiot. I'm sure Dillian Whyte doesn't know his reasoning behind why he chose to part ways with Breland. So, it's you can't come to an assumption like that. I think that's just Dillian Whyte doing what Dillian Whyte sometimes does. Surprised a little bit, yeah. But we don't know the full story behind it, We know that there was a bit of conflict about the towel going in, but, there could be a lot more to it. I know that people gave Jay Diaz a bit of stick, but as Dan just said, he's been with Wilder since Wilder's first day in the gym. He's a smart man. He's got a good eye for boxing, and he's definitely a good asset. And as I say, he's been with Wilder from day one. I'm sure Breland was a good asset as well, but if Wilder feels like that's the right decision for him, then then that may be the case. Who are we to judge? And we don't know the situation. I'm not saying it's the case, but was Breland asking him to get rid of other members in his team? Which, and then maybe he didn't want to. You don't know, Was it a money thing? You don't know. So everybody comes up with these assumptions, but really they don't know the truth. And I suppose you can only respect that they're all not really jumping out to speak about it. It's a personal matter, and it's better to keep the dirty laundry away.
You will have heard Tyson on British radio last week talking about wanting to fight again before the end of the year, regardless of it being Deontay Wilder. What did you make of that?
I'm sure he wants to get out and fight again, but I certainly think he needs to keep his mind on the Deontay Wilder thing. I know that people are thinking that it's going to be a rollover for Tyson, which potentially it could be, but don't be surprised if Deontay Wilder comes out and says, right, it's, Wilder's realistic with himself and says, look, I can't outbox this man and he's probably got a better engine than me. If I come out and say, look, it's 3 or 4 rounds, it's going to be me or you. He's a dangerous man. If he comes out with a high punch output, he is a dangerous man. And that dangerous man demands respect. So I think just keep focused on, keep working on your craft. Don't be in a rush. I mean, who's he going to box? Where's the money going to be generated for someone like Tyson, who's on the money that he's on? It's just, I don't see it being possibly happening. And I just think if it can't happen, just remain focused on how to go about different situations and scenarios for that Wilder fight, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Dan, thank you so much for your time and joining us and keeping us up to date with everything that's going on in the States. Fingers crossed, once this pandemic is gone, we can all be ringside once again together, my friend. Take care.
Thank you very much, Adam. I appreciate it, Ben. Good talking to you.
And you, Dan. Good to see you.